For all these reasons, it matters a lot that we clarify what obscenity means and what it doesn't. But there's something else we should know. Winning the war of words isn't the same as winning the war on words. In fact, getting caught up in the semantic conversation often misses a bigger point. Here's why. Convincing someone that a book can't be banned for adults isn't the same as convincing them that the book deserves protection, and it's a far sight from convincing them that we should protect all or most forms of expression. Similarly, convincing them that the law doesn't permit what they want doesn't persuade them from wanting that. They just switch to trying to change the law. That can actually deepen the commitment of banners and challengers to legislative action where other local actions have been stymied. That's why nailing down the semantics of the issue, showing that most things aren't technically obscene, is only part of the battle. And the end of the terminological discussion is only the beginning of the ideological one. That's where things get more complicated. Basically, we begin to ask not just whether something in particular can be restricted, but the larger question of what should be restricted. There's a complicated history around this thorny debate over how much freedom of speech to tolerate. In the middle of the last century, the Supreme Court acknowledged two competing ideas at work in our culture. On the one hand, freedom of speech is immensely important. On the other hand, some restrictions remain. Since some bans are legal, the real question is how we can convince people that most bans are not a good idea. How do we convince others to accept a narrow scope of exceptions to the First Amendment and, more difficult, that tolerating things we disagree with is ultimately good? One way is to go back to those voices that seem to evoke shared American political values. One option is John Stuart Mill, whose philosophy has had a big impact on free speech discourse in the US and who remains influential in some circles today. Mill says, if all mankind minus one were of one opinion, and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind. That's a strong statement in defense of minority opinions. We can also go all the way back to the Revolution. The founders were far from perfect, but their voices sometimes carry across political divides. Most were skeptical of restricting access to ideas, and thought doing so went against the principles of liberty and democracy. There are a lot of ways to tackle the ideological battle, but often this is the real fight that a battle over terminology distracts from or delays.